please ensure that you are not leaving it to the week that you are moving. Because if a van breaks down or they have a staff member sick, it will stay there and then you're in a spot of trouble because it will be running too late. Hi, I'm Jo Jacob and I'm a professional organiser and I own Bonella Home Organisation, and I have been an organiser for over 20 years and a very proud member of APDO, which is the Association of Professional Declutterers and Organisers. My speciality is home moves, but I also help people organise their homes, paperwork and printed photographs. But as I said, I really specialise in home moving and downsizing. So it's really how to have an organised home move. And there are various ways that I would absolutely recommend, a process to go through to make sure that you're not stressed. No one wants to turn up to a new home with furniture that doesn't fit, boxes they're going to keep for 5 years that they're still never going to unpack, or they've bought from the last 10 years where they weren't unpacked in their attic, anything like that. So the process I want to talk through is basically how to ensure that you have a smooth and easy organised home move. So number one, I would always talk through a floor plan. So get a floor plan from your estate agent or from online. And then when you have that floor plan, you can measure out your furniture. So you can decide what furniture you actually want to take with you and then measure it, get it to scale. I use software. There are some free software apps where you can use those to scale everything down and create the floor plan. But sometimes you might just be wanting to measure a sofa or a bed. If you can go and actually visit the property, then that really helps as well, because you might have something that will fit within a few centimeters. So you really do want to know that it's going to fit, that you've got the right plugs for everything and where it's all going to go. There's no point taking a chair that's a recliner that requires electricity if the only place that you can put it, there isn't a plug for it. So make sure to do that. So by creating a floor plan, it helps you realize what you can fit in and what you can take. And you can make a list of those items. Most importantly, what that then also creates is an inventory of items that you don't want to take. So I would say they're the items that you're going to move on. If you are helping elderly parents to downsize and maybe it's a little bit difficult for them, I wouldn't use the word dispose of because that tends to be quite upsetting. So ideally, an inventory of items to move on. And you can do that room by room or however you want to do it. But basically, you therefore know that you are not going to take those with you to your new home. If you are upsizing or right-sizing, i.e. going to the similar size property, then of course you might be taking everything with you, and that's absolutely fine. But this bit really is for if you are downsizing. So the process that I go through and the order that I go through with clients is, number one, is if you think that something is of value, then make sure you get that valued by an auction house. And a really easy way of doing that is just to take a photograph of it and email that to an auction house just to save any time and effort. And therefore, then they will tell you whether it's worth anything. So whether that's silver or china or items of furniture, they're going to tell you. You might think that the brown wardrobe that you bought 20 years ago that cost quite a bit of money is worth something, but maybe it wouldn't be, or maybe it is. And they'll then be able to tell you that. Once you know the value, obviously ask family members, loved ones, friends and family whether they would like something. And also another really good trick is to ask your buyer. So if you make a list of items, say, for example, garden furniture or something that's bespoke to the home that you're selling, then if you ask your buyer via the estate agent, then they will let you know whether they're interested in purchasing it or having you leave it. A quick tip there is if you are having them purchase it, if you're selling it to them, then that has to go through your solicitors. If it's just something that you're happy to leave for them, then as long as it's an email trail and it's in writing, then you're absolutely fine. It doesn't need to go through the solicitor because no money is exchanging hands. But always get advice there from your solicitor or from your conveyancer. So once then you've gone through auction house and your buyer, so you know whether you're selling anything, you can opt to try and sell things yourselves as well. Things like Urkel and G-Plan furniture is currently very popular. So same again, ask an auction house or look to sell it on online platforms, i.e. Facebook Marketplace, eBay, anything like that. The next one that you go to once you've made any money that you possibly can would be Charities. If you Google in your local area, there are lots of charities that would be able to come out and collect your items for you. Normally, they would want you to send in photographs and be quite specific with what it is. There are also lots of charities that will take electrical items, so make sure you use those as well. Things like British Heart Foundation or other charities that will take electrical items. So they will then come out and take those for you. If you are donating items to charity, please ensure that you are not leaving it to the week that you are moving. Because if a van breaks down or they have a staff member sick, it will stay there and then you're in a spot of trouble because it will be running too late. So always make sure that that happens a good 1 to 2 weeks before you are moving. And then you will be living with the furniture that you're actually keeping anyway. When you're then decluttering the furniture that you are not taking with you, a key tip is to ensure that the items that you are taking, so say for example, you are going to be taking a chest of drawers and with a dresser on top of it, then, and say you have bookshelves that are built in your current home and the new property doesn't have built-in bookshelves, then declutter the item of furniture that you are taking with you, i.e. the dresser, and fill it with the contents of other things that you are taking with you. So books from a bookshelf can go into a dresser, and make sure that in that dresser, you're not taking 20 placemats, that when you're only going to be downsizing and maybe fitting in 6 people, you don't therefore need 20 placemats. So therefore you've created space. So contents also go to charity as much as you can. The last resort for then moving items on would be house clearance, but always remember that there's a charge for that, and always ensure that any house clearance company you use, they have a waste license and they are insured. A lot of times I feel that clients will think that house clearance should be free because maybe they're going to be sell something on. But house clearance companies, they need to pay their insurance. They have to pay their waste license. If they dump it by the side of the road, you are still responsible and you will be fined for that. So always ensure it's a reputable company. Look on Google, look at their Trustpilot, their Google reviews, and just ensure, or by word of mouth is the best one as well. So the last resort then for moving items on is house clearance. They can also help with attics and your loft space, garages, mattresses, anything like that the charities won't take, because charities will need to have fire labels on those items. So once you've only got in your property what you're actually taking with you, and you've decluttered and you've sold what you can and moved everything else on, the next thing to ensure you have an organised move is to get removal surveys. I highly recommend you get a minimum of 3 removal surveys. That covers the cost, because they could vary by up to £1,000 in some cases, but also you're covering yourself for your date, that you might suddenly get a date that's a couple of weeks' notice and your removal company of choice might be booked up. A quick note with removal companies is try to avoid a Friday afternoon, and I would never move at the end of a month. So the last Friday of the end of the month, don't do that if you can. Always move on midweek or something like that. Mondays can be a little bit trickier as well if they are packing you up, because they would want to pack you up the day before and not store it over a weekend. So a really good day to move is something like Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday, in my experience. So the next item on the list would be to do all your change of address paperwork. So that's letting know your utilities, your banks, anyone that you need to let know. Doctors have to be told normally that after you have moved, not before, but everyone else would be notified beforehand. And you can do most of these things online. Just update your new address, make a note of it on your paperwork so that you know you've done one, use a checklist, and then send a generic letter to all other people that you need to let go. So the last one then is actual move day. Couple of top tips here. Ensure that your removal company really let you know all the time, so everyone is up to date with what is actually happening. Ensure that parking spaces are catered for with regard to the removal truck. I would always recommend having like a kitchen box ready, any medication, just so that you are not waiting for 20 boxes to be unpacked when actually you're quite exhausted and you would like to have a takeaway and get into bed. So always ensure that you take your own bedding with you, towels, any medication, toiletries, have a suitcase with a few changes of clothes in. And then, as I said, a kitchen box, have some tea, coffee, a kettle, couple of plates, cutlery, bowls, things like that, just to get you through that day, the evening, and then your breakfast. And then you will have a super organized move and it won't be as stressful as you think. So I really hope those tips have been helpful. As I said, as an expert home mover and downsizer, I have lots of information on my website. So please visit bonella.co.uk. For more information, there are checklists for you and different bundles that you can get in my Etsy store to help. So I really hope that helps.